Attention Emblem Gremlins. Game to Give 2025, the Bungie Foundation's annual charity event, is now live. There are 13 this year, technically 16 emblems for you to donate for if you want any of them. Most emblems will require a $7 donation. The newest one is $25, and there are 3 lifetime donation emblems as well in case you have been donating over the years. My campaign link is in the description if you would like to donate. And if my campaign hits 20K, I will torture myself by playing Trick Shot Simulator and trying to hit every single trick shot in the game in one sitting. So get to donating and enjoy the video. Hi, I'm non-trademark infringing original character Spruce Grainer. And we're back with another Let's Argue. The first one went over pretty well. Let's Argue, where I'm taking your hot takes, your tough questions, your anything about the game, or really about anything ever at all. I got another batch of questions right here ready to go. Although, I will say there have been a lot of repeat questions. A lot of like, the content's kind of stale, or like, oh, here's my take on crafting, and this kind of stuff. If you're wondering why I'm not answering those questions, it's because I've already talked about those questions like ad nauseum, and like we've already done it, and I don't want this show to just be the same 10 questions on repeat. Okay, so let's get some different stuff in here. The Justin Truman GDC conference was not nearly as damning as people make it out to be. It was encouraging developers to not put themselves in situations where they end up disappointing their fans in the future. Definitely not something meant to be dissected to death by the player base. So what this person is referring to is the whole over-delivery talk that was given at GDC by Justin Truman, who is very high up at Bungie working on Destiny right now, where a lot of people, I think, took that whole over-delivery line a bit maybe too literal. I think a lot of people interpreted that over delivery line as, make sure you don't make anything too good about the game. Like, continue to stay average, don't excel at anything. Where in reality, I think it was mainly about quantity of content, where if you make a bit extra, like let's say in a certain season, they come out with a couple of extra things, that is now going to be a new expectation for the community going forward, where if you come out with another season of content or another batch of content that doesn't have as much as previously given out, people are going to be very upset about that because you're just not getting as much stuff as you did in the prior one. So instead of looking at it as a bonus, people look at it as the new norm. So over delivery in that sense, to me, is more of like hey, make sure that you're balancing your workload. Make sure you're not burning yourselves out trying to crank out all this extra content. Make sure people know that if you're giving them some kind of a bonus thing, that you shouldn't expect it every single time. That's the direction that I think they were going with, especially considering where they are at the Game Developers Conference. I think it was more of a burnout thing, not a make sure you hold yourself back so you don't make anything actually good kind of a thing like the community kind of ran with. Although, why have I never talked about this until now? Well, I already try to give Bungie the benefit of the doubt on a lot of things, and I try to be the kind of devil's advocate, but this was just one of those topics that people just kind of ran with, and I didn't get to cover it at the exact moment, so I was just not going to go against the grain and just try to fight people on it, because no one was going to care what I had to say anyway. A lot of Destiny YouTubers need to recognize that their endless game is ruined comments over the years have helped foster this toxic and negative environment the whole community has been getting deeper into since Lightfall. Small and large creators alike, you good though. Then stop rewarding it. If you don't want creators to make these kinds of videos anymore, stop rewarding it as viewers, okay? That's the only way it's going to stop, is if you stop watching it. But guess what? You don't stop watching it. I put out my thoughts video, 2025, Destiny going into 2025, and the thumbnail was a bit more negatively focused, right? People came in, saw that thumbnail, saw that it was a little more negative leaning. Oh, Datto's going to talk some shit about the game, right? And that video did amazing. And then I made the polar opposite video me having fun, laughing with the buds, running some GMs, doing silly stuff, and that video did terrible. This is the first time I'm actually going to show some like monetization stats on this channel, because I usually don't like to, talk about, oh, how much money did this make? How much money did that make? So I'm putting some things on the screen right now that show the first day performance of that video, that going into 2025 video, and then the comedy video where we're having a good time, we're just having fun, positive vibes, good energy, all that kind of stuff. You get it? Do you get it? Okay? Do you get it now? Look at the viewer retention. Do you get it now? Why people continue to make this kind of content? It's because you watch it. It's because you continue to watch it. If it wasn't doing gangbusters, if it wasn't making people thousands and thousands of dollars to continue to watch this kind of stuff or to make this kind of stuff, people wouldn't make it anymore. But we as a society love to talk. And I'm guilty of it too. I will watch these drama videos. Oh, this game sucks. That game sucks. I try to balance it out with I'll watch my boy Skill Up and he'll be like, this game's amazing. Let me tell you about all the reasons it's amazing. And I try to counter that, that negativity with the positivity as well. But most creators are gonna tell you that they make that kind of stuff because people subscribe to it, and they make a lot of money from it, and they get a lot of views from it. That's why they continue to make it, because it works. And if it didn't work anymore, people would stop. And it's not like I disagree with you. I have definitely posted my fair share of maybe not complete rage bait, but I think valid criticisms that I try to, push in the title, in the thumbnail, that this is going to be like a, hey, Datto's talking about Destiny kind of a video, because I want people to freaking watch. At the end of the day, that's what I need. I need people to watch the videos. That's my friggin' job. If I'm making videos that people are not watching, if I had a boss, they would fire me, right? That's why it happens. It's rewarded. It makes a lot of money. It gets a lot of views. So stop watching it. But we're not going to. So we're just going to talk in circles. It's a vicious cycle. Dungeons and raids need an easy mode. There's been a lot of conversation recently about Salvation's Edge. I've gotten a few questions, talking about Salvation's Edge, like, oh, is this like the worst raid? Is this aged so poorly and this and that? And I don't think the raid aged poorly at all. I think it's one of the best raids we've ever gotten, over the decade that we have. The problem is that it's just not very easy to teach. And its reward structure is a bit flawed in that it doesn't really encourage any repeated runs after you've done your master clear, your master challenges, and gotten all the red borders, right? I think I have maybe 20 to 30 total clears of that place, and I was just done because there's no reason to really run it anymore after that. And a lot of people don't run it because it's hard to teach, and so therefore that pool of players who might be actually running it quite a lot when it first comes out, they're not playing it anymore because the rewards aren't there and it's annoying to teach. Contrast that with Root of Nightmares, which I thought was not spectacular, but it does get a lot of plays because it's easy. Now, I'm not saying that Bungie needs to make easy dungeons and raids, or I don't think they need to make them easier. What I think might not be a terrible idea is something that I've mentioned tons of times in the past on this channel, where Bungie makes an easy mode that is maybe not as rewarding, not as mechanically difficult, but it still gets people into the environment. It gets them into that kind of content. Maybe you are with 5 other people and you're in a Discord call or something like that, and you're just kind of able to take it at your own pace. It's not as punishing, something like that. Just to build that psychological factor up a bit, like maybe you're antisocial, you got social anxiety, whatever, or maybe you're just not that good at the game, right? That might help get some more people into these pieces of content. And if Bungie was able to make like an LFG difficulty version of the raid that was easier but not as rewarding, I think most people would be okay with that. Gumbo and jambalaya are the same food. I am not particularly a jambalaya or gumbo guy, but I do have a guy who is very into that. We're going to give him a call real quick.
Casey's Cuisine, how can I help you?
Holtz, I have a question and you're my gumbo guy. Or rather, I have a take and you're my gumbo guy, my number one gumbo guy. The take is gumbo and jambalaya are the same thing.
That person needs to go to the hospital. They clearly got rocks on their head.
Okay. Can you give me some differences?
Gumbo is wet. It's a stew. Similar to a stew, at least. Stew,
Okay.
soup, something like that. Jambalaya is more of a rice-based dish. Think of it like, paella or rice with other stuff thrown into it.
Okay. Do they use different kinds of like meats or ingredients?
You can basically have the same ingredients, but the main thing is for gumbo, you're going to need a lot of stock, like chicken stock, seafood stock. Jambalaya, on the other hand, will use stock, and you will usually put that into the rice. Like, you will cook the rice in the stock. Gumbo, on the other hand, you'll like add some rice, like add some big scoops of rice into there. Whereas jambalaya will just be, it's all basically mixed and kind of cooked together, more or less.
So if you ordered gumbo and got jambalaya, you'd be pissed?
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
Okay, that's all I need you for. Thanks, dude.
All right. Yeah. Later.
Take care. Power is pointless and should be taken out of the game. With the way Bungie can tweak the difficulty of activity, what's the point of having power anymore, especially with Fireteam Power enabling the newest players to do any activity in the game? I think that's what Bungie is working on potentially for Frontiers. I think they're going to be really looking at the way that we interact with power levels in the game. It's just, I feel like it's more of like a holdover from just like most games, right? Most games have some sort of level go up system. And I think that like whole number go up situation for some people is enough to kind of drive them to be doing more content, even though lately it doesn't really matter as much. Like, I've seen so many people being like, I can't believe they're going to raise the power cap again. In the next episode, it's my FOMO. It's going crazy. Like, I don't feel like people recognize how not important levels really are in the game right now. I don't focus on leveling pretty much at all in the game. I am not playing that much. I got to 2010 running Vesper's host like a couple times a week on all my characters, and then maybe a Nightfall here and there, and then just kind of generally playing the game. If you're still generally playing the game, you will level up just fine. I probably want to hold any more discussions on big changes like power until we see what's going on with Frontiers, because again, Destiny is just not built in the same way that other ARPGs are built or other MMOs are built, where like number go up is actually kind of important on your gear, right? Like when you get a new piece of gear in an MMO and the item level is higher than the previous thing that you had, then your stats are going up, and then you're slowly building your item level so that you can tackle harder content. The game doesn't work that way for us. It works a very different way. It's not an MMOified experience. And so I think Bungie is still wanting to keep that experience in the game somehow, but still trying to make people happy with the power grind in some way. How many Bungie devs do you think you could beat in a fist fight? Back-to-back MMA rules. Back-to-back. I think it depends on who approached me. I think I could beat up the average Bungie dev? I do think I could. I have about a decade of karate experience and sparring experience in me. Now, granted, that was a very long time ago, but I still have a lot of those instincts. My wife has also been doing Muay Thai for the past couple of years now, so if she got me in like a coaching session or two real quick before we started, I think I could definitely beat up the average Bungie dev. But back to back, I mean, like, what if, the first person is just like a wimp, and then the next guy is like, yeah, I train at the gym 6 days a week, and I'm it depends on who showed up, right? Because anyone with any amount of legitimate training, or even just goes to the gym, if we're, maybe the same height, similar build, they're probably winning. With no training at all, I think I win. So back to back, it would depend. If it's just average, we're just taking the average, right, of everybody. I think I could maybe do 2 or 3. I wouldn't really want to push it beyond that because it's been so long since I've actually fought or sparred or anything like that. But I think just the instincts alone would help carry me quite far. Vesper final boss DPS feels like we are back to a Reckoning Bridge power creep situation. I like learning attack patterns like the Witness, but the randomness / frequency of the one-shot lightning and duplicates chasing you while trying to do DPS makes for an annoying / unfun time for an otherwise fantastic dungeon. Yeah, I can agree with that. For those who don't know, Reckoning was an activity back in Season 6 where Well of Radiance spam and tethers was just out of control and you could have them nearly infinitely. And the only way that Bungie could actually kill you was to spawn a bunch of ogres or phalanx to boop you off of the platform so that you would instantly die. And that was in Season 6. Okay? That was that long ago. Part of the reason I think the first few clears took so long, or it was as brutal as it was to clear Vesper's Host on contest mode, was because of that final boss fight. And if we don't have a boss fight where you're constantly running for your life, worried about getting one shot by lightning while getting chased down by like elite level enemies, I don't think it takes nearly as long, which is why I'm very interested to see what they end up doing with the next dungeon in episode Heresy. Also would prefer something more like The Witness, where it is a bit more predictable and it feels like there's a skill element to it, as opposed to just like a raw gameplay, like you just gotta jump around like a freaking maniac and just hope that you don't die. Even though like I think there's been some stuff done on Reddit that like shows that there is some kind of a pattern, but like only the most hardcore of hardcore are even gonna try to memorize that. And then even then you have these copies kind of pushing you around and chasing you and trying to kill you, so you can't always stick to that pattern either. So I personally would prefer something more like The Witness, where it's like telegraphed attack, do something in response. You did the thing in response, you lived, congrats, here comes another one, and then you have to do the dance, essentially. We'll maybe talk about this a little bit more after the Heresy dungeon comes out, because I am very interested to see if we're going to keep going down this path or not. As a non-content creator, the move to releasing everything on day one was terrible and makes going on social media or reading twids like a spoiler alert in like insanity. I liked logging in every week for a new episode to get more story. I also got the complete opposite of this feedback from other players, where they said, releasing everything on day one is great. I'm so glad that they did this, blah, blah, blah. Really goes to show that there's no true right answer for this situation that Bungie is in with trying to time gate or not time gate, because the time gated stuff, it does give you a reason to log in every week, check in, do some story, do some this, do some that. But dropping it all on day one allows certain players to just play everything all at once, so they don't really have to worry about it. Again, I just don't think there is a right answer. I really don't. You know, some people are going to like it one way, some people are going to like it the other way. No matter what, people are going to be mad, and I think Bungie just needs to, you know, figure out which side is happier with what system, and then just try to appeal to as many people as possible. Obelisk is overhated by the community. If you find it at the right time and are able to adapt to its condition, then it can absolutely carry a build. That Joker got me my final gold state clear for Completionist Plus almost single-handedly. Yeah, I think what people hate about Obelisk is like maybe you get some kind of a tag that's like, oh, rare Joker in the shop, and then it's an Obelisk where you've already like locked in your build, you know what you're doing, you're already like establishing your power hand, or you've already kind of developed your deck in a way that would make taking Obelisk very, you know, destructive. Because when you take it, you're essentially saying to yourself, okay, whatever I'm doing, I'm completely ditching it and I'm hard shifting to something else. And a lot of people just don't want to do that in the moment, right? I don't. I think if you can find Obelisk early, then it's worth maybe trying out, because you don't get that opportunity very often. But you also can't go into a game thinking like, okay, I'm going to build for Obelisk, because Obelisk might not ever show up, right? So it's just one of those things where if you have the perfect moment where you haven't really built your deck and it's early and you get that rare Joker and it's an Obelisk and just everything lines up, maybe just been playing high cards and pairs or two pairs, something that, you know, is eventually going to get outclassed by anything else that you want to play, then sure, take it. But I think I would agree that it's overhated. But honestly, I think part of it is jealousy. I think people are just like mad that they haven't been able to get an obelisk build going. Because I kind of am. I would love to use obelisk one day, but it's just never lined up with the things that I'm doing. And, at some point, you have to be in the right situation for it. It's a hyper specific situation Joker that you just need to be ready for, and just you got to make the call in that moment. And not everyone has the balls to do that. Menagerie was boring and is only looked fondly on because of the loot bug glitch that drowned players in loot. If we had the chalice focusing and something like Coil/Contest of Elders, then it would be peak. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that Menagerie was boring, because I did really think it was a super fun activity. And at the time, we might look at it now and be like, oh, like, what was the big deal? But at the time, considering the things that we had gotten before it, it was a pretty big deal. Now, where do I agree with you? I agree with you that the whole loot bug situation where you could zone into a different area and then come back and get like 5 weapons in a single run absolutely helped its legacy, right? We can't really judge something by how it should have been. We have to judge it by how it actually was. And how was it? You could get 4 to 5 weapons every single run, which people really liked. And again, we're not in an age of crafting yet. There's no crafted weapons. We're season 7. That's where we're at. So I disagree with Menagerie being boring, because I did think in the moment, at the time, it was very novel. It was entertaining. But you would have had, probably a pretty significant drop off doing a whole Menagerie run only to get 1 weapon at the end. Especially like even considering where we're at like right now. People really don't like, even getting like 1 or 2 things for a pretty short clear, right? So, retrospect, hindsight's 2020. But I didn't think it was boring, but the loot bug absolutely helped its legacy. And still to this day is something that I felt like helped potentially ruin the game, because it was so good at the time. Thank you to everyone again on Blue Sky for participating. Again, if I did not get to your question, I'm sorry. I only have so much time to dedicate to these videos. And also, again, there's a lot of like repeat stuff, a lot of stuff that I've already talked about. So come up with some better takes if you want to be on the show, or ask me something funny that I find funny or neat. And then that's how you get on the show. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.